Well, for the first time in a Philadelphia 76ers uniform, outside of Media Day and any practice uniform that we saw Paul George in the Bahamas, we finally get to see him in an actual game setting. No, we don't. Kinda.
Maybe.
Highlights.
We're all waiting to find out.
That's what we'll figure out later on tonight. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Podcast with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna's here. You're here in the chat. Debut preseason P that we don't get to see tonight. We'll discuss.
Well, we're still trying to figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll find some way to find some action on screen.
It's supposed to be on League Pass, right? But it's only an in-arena feed, so you're not even getting any broadcasters.
So for anyone who hasn't had experience with the in-arena feed on a preseason game before, there were several notable circumstances.
Oh, man.
One was the Sixers had a preseason game in Orlando for a game against Markelle Fultz. It was his first game after he was traded. He missed the end of that season. Mm-hmm. And then this was his so that was a very anticipated game. And the stream for it, which they didn't show on NBC Sports Philadelphia, but you could find it online, was every goofy angle, yes. Every weird possible thing you could expect on a screen. The other one that I remember, and this one actually might not have been the CCTV arena feed from, I think it was Kansas City. It would have been Ben Simmons' rookie year. Maybe it was Joel's rookie year. They played the Miami Heat in Kansas City, and there was a lot of pressure. You got to broadcast the game. You got to broadcast the game. And I'll never forget, Joel was coming down the court, and it was like the scene in Independence Day where the green laser came down. The whole screen just flashed yellow all at once. And I was like, what happened? Did they break the flash? Or maybe it's actually probably more like The Natural, if you guys have seen that movie, sure, where he hits the home run at the end and all the lights explode. And all
the string.
That is what it was like. And then I'm pretty sure Joel dunked right after that, or maybe right before it, one or the other. So
what movie
if it's
reference
on
will
League Pass,
right.
It might be on, it's listed as on League Pass. If it's on there, do not expect high production quality. Do not expect to turn on your TV, turn on your League Pass and be like, boy, this looks like a basketball game that I would see any other night of the year. It will be funky. It will be a word I won't say, effed up. It'll be interesting.
And look, for the most part, I don't support opening up a trial account with no intention of ever using it beyond that, in part because we have subscriptions as well we'd like to sell. But if there's ever an instance to open up a trial account just for this one game, it's when they're not even going to give you a freaking broadcast. Open up a trial, watch the game, get what you need. Hey, I buy League Pass every year. It's a good product. Consider it. But definitely open it up so you can see it.
Debut P. Debut P. That's how you find it. In the
good product.
Yes. In Mikhail's Phoenix days, I used to.
Derek's on the take from big NBA
I kind of need to. It's sort of part of my job. But
in Mikhail's Phoenix days, man, those in-arena feeds.
It's wild.
Were fun. You get all the.
This is professional basketball,
you
man.
get
We're
the halftime. You get the halftime experience with the cheerleaders. You get the in-arena hosts.
Yeah.
And the mascot throwing shirts in the stands. You get it all. So if you do find it, go ahead and enjoy it. And then let us know tomorrow what you thought, because
we'll circle back with everybody
right.
with what means they resorted to watch this game. Obviously, everything will be legal and above board on this end.
We're going
to watch only
else.
through official NBA League Pass partner feeds, and we won't encourage anyone to do otherwise, but we can discuss tomorrow, I suppose. Another example, by the way, of how Comcast is a criminal organization and should be banished from the city of Philadelphia forever, because you're the rights holder. You are, as I yelled about earlier this week, they're the home team. You can't just send one guy with even if it's a Zapruder film, you can't just send one guy with a camera or pay a stringer to go sit in the stands in Iowa and get we don't even need sound. You could put there are all these different ways to watch games now. We do watch alongs on YouTube. Just do a blank stream, no sound, and that'll be enough. It's better than having zero on your local channel.
It happens sometimes anyway when you have the actual announcers and the feed gets lost. And some people are like, you know what? this is not bad. Where
This is a little better anyway.
Exactly. Whatever city you might be in, and that's the way you like to watch it, then that's the way you like to watch the basketball game.
A broadcast with no sound is exactly how I watched every Doc Rivers broadcast before he got hired.
Oh, look at that. Pretty good one. All right.
Gotta hit that
All right, now
mute
that
button.
we've done our 5 or 6 minutes on why Comcast should be nuked into the core of the earth.
Well, we got.
What's everybody excited for if we get to see
What
the
do
game?
you want to see from debut P, Derek? Because he will be in the lineup. He's on the trip. Joel Embiid did not make the trip. He stayed back, and we anticipated that he wouldn't be participating in either one of these games tonight or tomorrow. It is a back-to-back in Boston against the Celtics tomorrow. But for tonight, debut for Paul George, with the Philadelphia 76ers.
I missed something?
I went right to Boston.
Went through a time warp.
I went right to Boston. Paul
Larry
George.
Hughes, really
Yeah, I was
excited for
gonna
that
say,
guy
thank you,
out of
Larry
St.
Brown.
Louis.
Went right to Boston and stayed there with Paul Pierce. But Paul George, we think Tyrese Maxey is going to be out there with him. He's going to play. So what are you looking for? And if this is the case, and it does, and Nick Nurse does have Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre out there, Eric Gordon comes off the bench, Andre Drummond starts at the 5. You at least get 4 of the 5 starters. So what are you looking for from Paul George?
Well, I was going to say that might be the first takeaway, right? Is we actually finally get an answer to the starting lineup question. I think we've all sort of settled on likely being Kelly and Caleb around the 3.
Yep.
But because this is now the only starter that wouldn't be in the game is Joel, and he has a direct replacement in Drummond, this would be your first chance to really read into that. We haven't even really gotten a chance to see any scrimmaging yet, so we haven't gotten an indication on that question. So that's probably the first takeaway. My second thing that I want to see from Paul George, debut P, I just hope that I can actually see the game. We covered that for the first 5 minutes of this
I
show.
think we've adequately discussed
Just
that part.
wild that we're still talking about this. It is 2024. Anyway, after that, it's any kind of chemistry he can develop with Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Specifically, not only just, maybe switching and being able to attack mismatches and hunt mismatches and running a little pick and roll to try to get the switches that you want, but also just what does he do off ball? Because Paul George isn't just a catch and shoot player. He can run off of a screen. What does Nick Nurse have diagnosed that he can try to get Paul open, try to give Paul closeouts to attack, just try to get defenders on the move so Paul George can be the most effective version of himself. It's almost less about what I want to see from Paul and what I want to see from Nick Nurse.
Yeah, because
Not that you're going to see his full game plan in game 2 of the preseason, but still, indications.
But this is ostensibly the team, unless there are some unexpected absences that we haven't heard about yet. This will be the team that takes the floor and starts and finishes in the games that it's like a back-to-back or 3 games of 4 nights, or Joel's just hurt where he's off the floor. Okay, how good do you look? What do the combinations look like? What does the synergy look like? And on top of that, how do you sub it, right? So beyond that, if they go to Yabusele again as a 5, what does the lineup look like when he's on the floor? And how do you try to protect him? But I agree with Derek. I think the number one thing is how assertive or maybe not assertive is Paul, and what does that combination with Tyrese Maxey look like, right? Because when Joel's out there, we know that the foundation of the offense and the team has been their 2-man game. Everything sort of flows off of that. And that allows Paul to slide into that natural number 3 role where, yes, he's able to beat guys one-on-one and you can run offense through him. But by and large, in that situation, he's going to be the release valve, the guy who's going to put up a ton of catch and shoot shots, the guy who's going to attack closeouts, be an off-ball cutter, be a screener who's not necessarily getting the ball, just someone who's trying to draw attention to himself and attack situationally. Now, this is different. He's true number 2 option. He's someone who's going to get opportunities to run pick and rolls with someone like a Drummond, maybe do some dribble handoff type plays with Maxey, and maybe some of the stuff that we saw with Buddy Hield last year, right, where he's setting ghost screens and he can be or you might even use Maxey in that way. And that's Nick has talked a lot about in the preseason. Part of the value of having Paul, as well as some of these other guys, is that there are more guys that you can ask to bring the ball up the floor. If Maxey is facing full court pressure, even if it's 3/4 court pressure, and he's getting worn down by trying to break the press, Paul is a guy you can throw him the ball and expect him to. I know this is a crazy thing to say. It seems so simple for professional basketball players, but he's someone who can get the ball across half court, get you into a set, and initiate the offense. So I want to see how much they lean on him for that and just how assertive he is, because that is kind of the tricky thing with Paul. There are nights and there are games where he's waving guys off and saying, give me the ball. And then there are stretches of time where he looks like he would rather do anything other than touch the ball. So I know he's talked a lot in training camp and preseason about, I'm not trying to come in and, step on people's toes and it's a feeling out process. My guess is he will take at least a little bit of a step back from what you probably expect. By the same token, I hope on defense he shows up with his hard hat and we see some of what we want to see in the regular season.
And since you guys went offense, that's where I was going to pivot to, because that was one of the things that we highlighted for the preseason game. All three of us, including Rich, all four of us, wanted to see what the Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre tandem looked like against of course, an inferior team against the Breakers, but what that chemistry looked like on the wing for their defensive purposes. And now with Paul George potentially out there tonight with those guys in the starting lineup, we've talked about it so much of the wing depth and how important the starting unit with those three around Maxey and Embiid and how that's going to translate now defensively. And now we're talking about if Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels are out there on the floor together in that starting lineup. I'm very, very curious to see what that looks like. By the way, we haven't seen with Minnesota because Julius Randle did not play in game number 1. Dante DiVincenzo did. What does that look like against a real starting lineup now if Julius Randle plays, especially at a guy who plays the actual 4 spot and actually a physical power forward and not more like that, again, wing finesse type of 4-man that Paul George we presume to be in this starting lineup, how that looks. So with anything that we get a chance to see, I want to see how those three play defensively against an elite shooting guard, an elite, at least defensively, in Jaden McDaniels, but a rangy, lengthy wing who can move and cut and find some spots and shoot threes when the ball swings to him. And then now that physical brute that is Julius Randle, of how they're going to have to match up against that, because while they have their advantages on one end, they're going to have to figure out how to slow down certain types of power forwards like Julius Randle. So how does that factor in? Is Naz Reid out there on the floor too, more physical also, but a stretch guy who can shoot the three, who closes out? What did the communication look like between those three of switching and just picking up right away when those screens do happen? So I want to see that. And as far as the shot making goes with Paul George, I just want to see it because it's Paul George and he's a shot maker. And
you want to see it in Sixers colors,
yes,
baby.
I do.
We've seen it in LA and OKC and Indiana. Bring it on down to Philadelphia.
Look, the guy, we talked about it for a reason. The guy can still average 23, 24 points. I want to see what the shot making looks like now against with a different type of guard that Maxey is versus what James Harden was a season ago. Of course, with Kawhi Leonard, I want to see for however many minutes. Does he get a stretch there for 2-3 minutes where he gets hot? And he gets hot. And that's the highlight package that the Sixers decide to cut up and put on their Twitter account because we want to see that because, okay, he's going nuts. You played the other day on our show, the Maxey full 12 minutes of how that looked. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see how that shot making looks like in the Sixers uniform. And it was also playing off of what we were at least shared at training camp of how good that guy looked when we would speak to Nick Nurse, when we would talk to Tyrese Maxey with those post-practice availability, and how all of them said how good he looked out there on the practice floor. So I want to see all of that translate to this game 1, see how it goes, and however many minutes that he plays out there in that Sixers uniform, because that's going to be all of that stuff is important. And you both said it. This is going to be a lineup where we probably see 20 times too, where Joel Embiid is not playing. So
we hope not to see it all the time, but reality is.
I just mean if this is the way that they're going to go,
yes,
this is this. We think this is the starting 5, or at the very least, sometimes we're going to see those 3 wings on the floor together with Drummond and Maxey. So getting a glimpse against a really good basketball team of how all of this comes together and what it all looks like, featured around Maxey and George.
And while you're bringing up the switching, I think now that they have presumably all 3 of those guys available tonight, will they switch completely 1 through 4? And do they trust Tyrese at this stage? All the talk in the offseason about building up his strength, building up his body, working on, his off-ball reads and his attentiveness and fighting through screens, doing all that different stuff. Well, now it's sort of, okay, you have all the surrounding personnel that they will freely switch, or we're expecting them to freely switch. And so here's your first chance, Tyrese, to go out there, and this is an opportunity to say and show Nick Nurse that you can play a 1-4 switching scheme, and Nick doesn't have to worry about throwing extra support behind you, shading coverage your way to help if you get stuck on an island against maybe a bigger wing. And there will be some of that regardless, right? No matter how hard Tyrese works, no matter how much muscle he puts on, he's going to be giving up, whether it's strength, height, length, or all of those things against some of the NBA wings he'll be matched up against. As long as he's not a guy that, like a Trae Young type, that you just line up and say, I want that guy.
Go get him.
Just go get, red meat for
light up.
You just don't want to be that guy. As long as he is competent to be able to consistently switch with the rest of these guys, that's going to make a massive difference. And I'm excited to see, now that Paul's out there, just how cohesive that whole look kind of works.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the other two wings on the other side, because I want to ask you guys about how they play into it. With no Embiid, somebody's going to be that third scorer in that offense. Is it Kelly? Does that just naturally go to Kelly Oubre? Where does Caleb Martin fit in? Of course, Drummond will get his, how Drummond gets his. I ask you guys about that on the other side here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast.
All right, first up, we want to tell you about Empire today. It is getting a little colder, so that might get in the way of some of your home to-do list, but not flooring. It's inside. That helps. And if you're like me, you probably need a little help with some of those home projects. If flooring is something on your to-do list, Empire Today is where you want to go. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is so good that they do have some copycats, but those copycats can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, or speed, so they advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. Empire Today keeps shopping for Floor Simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer to help make everything a little bit easier. It's a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy, just snap a picture and instantly see how those floors will look in your room. Flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident that you're getting honest, upfront advice. And they also service their own warranties. So with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when you use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
And as we talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and we all talk about our preseason coverage overall, it's brought to you by our good friends from Rothman Orthopedics. And everyone has a specialty they love. You all do. I do. You do. The gang does here. And with Rothman, for some, it's running, it's gardening. As it gets cold, still, you got to make sure your gardening is all good. For others, it's shooting hoops and crossing up defenders. At Rothman Orthopedics, their physicians are not only specialized in orthopedics and clinical research, but they are also fellowship trained to treat specific areas of the body. Since 1970, their physicians have remained committed to research, innovation, and minimally invasive procedures to get you back to what you specialize in. They are Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you. And I am one who is walking around today because of Rothman. They fixed me up, ACL and Achilles. I'm back to normal because of these great people. And year over year, Rothman consistently perform among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country. I raise my hand again because of my ankle, my Achilles, over 60,000. And for more than 50 years, Rothman has participated in thousands of groundbreaking research and clinical trials with the goal of advancing knowledge, developing treatments, and improving outcomes for the benefit of their patients. So if you, like me, or someone else you may know, Rothman Orthopedics, they have you covered, specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
I like that ad read is always our daily reminder that Devon is basically Mr. Glass.
Lately.
I'm gonna make a Photoshop at some point, but I feel like that's tempting fate. So I don't want to do that myself, given that I've one wrong turn and my ankle could shatter into a thousand pieces myself.
So Winona says that I'm hyped. I just want to see Paul George, kind of, because we can't get to see it on television tonight. But
sort of, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
In theory.
In theory.
From weird angles and with no audio.
Right. I just want to see it. And look, even from the little bit of the teasing that we got of him shooting some drills post-practice that we would see, or some videos that the Sixers team put out on their social accounts, I just want to see the guy suit up in his number 8, get busy out there, and what does it look like? And this is what we talk about so much with all of you, all of us, Bree, Rich. We want to see what the guy looks like. So hype, yes, I am hyped because I just want to see that first glimpse of how it's going to play out on the floor. So with that, what are the other two wings? Where do they fit in a non-Embiid offense with Maxey and George as the two focal points? We know what Andre Drummond does outside of his sniper from the corner, the 3-point shot that he's going to take tonight against Rudy Gobert because he's lagging off on defense. Where do the other two fit in with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey out there on the floor?
I don't think things change much for Caleb, right? I just see him as one of those classic fifth starter type players that he's going to move off the ball. He's going to try to get some occasional offensive rebounds. Otherwise, he'll be a spot up, closeout attacker type. And I think he's okay with that. Like, I think it's everything that we saw about him in Miami suggests he's okay being that complimentary, I want to say hands off, but more subdued type of role, and steps up as needed, but doesn't necessarily say, hey, I need the ball, and like wave his hand to people. He plays his role and he knows it. I think the interesting thing will be, how did the other touches get distributed between Kelly and Andre? And the reason I say Andre is I think that him and Kelly might end up playing off each other a decent amount, because if you look at a lot of Kelly's success as a cutter last year, came off of those. Joel in the middle of the floor, Kelly coming down either from the dunker spot or from the weak side corner and getting those easy buckets at the basket. Certainly, Andre Drummond is not getting double teamed at the nail the way Joel Embiid was. But I think if he's got strengths on the offensive end, one of them is his ability to play make out of that kind of area. And so Kelly's role might change depending on, do you involve Andre in the offense more, or is it the same as it would be any other night? So that's kind of an open question right now. I guess the other part of it too is Andre going to continue shooting threes? I know that was a topic on the show the other day. If he spaces the floor and he starts, I don't think tonight will be the start of like, oh man, we got to guard Andre Drummond. But I think over time, if he can start to get some consistent defensive attention on the perimeter, that opens things up for someone like Kelly, for someone like Caleb to be more of a slasher and take advantage of that space in the middle of the floor. So Kelly is the one to watch, right? Do they hand him more responsibility? Does he elevate into that third option type of role and get some on-ball reps? Otherwise, it's, I would say, mostly business as usual is what I would expect.
Yeah, I think that's mostly right. And I don't really want all that many players trying to elevate their games too much. There is no natural like fourth option on his team. It's the top three and a bunch of role players. And for the most part, I want them to continue to play their role. You're obviously going to have to do a little more off the dribble. You're going to have to self-create a little more. You're probably going to have to make more of an effort to get out in transition to overcome the drop in the half-court efficiency. But I don't want to see Kelly trying to be like Mr. 20-point per game Kelly. I think Kelly is at his best when he is cutting off ball, when he is taking pretty much only open catch and shoot threes, and when he keeps the ball moving. And I would like to see that more than anything. I think anything that's going to get Kelly into I need to attack and I need to self-create, I would rather right now just get him into good habits, especially because this game doesn't matter.
But I do think that he thinks when he looks at everyone else in the lineup and he knows that pecking order.
I have no doubt that he thinks he's the third best player on that floor. He's the third guy, yes. Maybe even the number one guy out there because of that irrational confidence that he has. But
I wouldn't go that far, but there are definitely moments. There are moments
that he knows that he can score out there on the floor. So no Joel Embiid. He's like, all right, somebody else is going to have to put these numbers up. It might as well be me. Now, in this environment, a preseason game, we may not get all that upset about it, especially if he's producing and he's putting up some decent numbers. But he thinks that he's the third best guy and the rest of the offense is going to flow through him when the other two are double teamed and the ball swings. He's going to attack. He may not look for that extra pass. he's going to attack and try to get to the basket and finish like he normally does.
I mean, and if we're being honest, there's a real chance that Jared McCain ends up with the most shots tonight because then the second half rotations get crazy and the young kid just gets to play. So it could be another thing where we're talking mostly about the first half rotations. But he could. I'd prefer not if he didn't try to play hero ball, but we'll see.
Is it hero ball if the ball's swinging and it's about 8 on the clock and he's like, all right, it's time to get to work?
If there's a guy 6 inches in front of his face with a hand there, then yes, I do think that's hero ball.
What that means? That's jab step, man, and jab step, and then I'm going right to the lane.
But look, I mean, Paul George was not there last game, or Joel Embiid, and I didn't think Kelly took any real out of character, uncharacteristic shots, right? I thought one of the things that maybe we didn't talk about after that game was, I think generally, other than Tyrese, the ball just kind of, they played free-flowing, share the ball type of basketball. And it's easy to do that when you're playing the New Zealand Breakers and basically every guy can attack the other guy off the dribble and get to the basket and collapse the defense, create open shots, all that. So that'll be put to the test a lot more tonight, even in another preseason game that doesn't mean anything. But I do think what we saw last year with Kelly out of training camp and in preseason was an embrace of what Nick Nurse wanted to do. And I think we've seen that from pretty much all the guys so far in, admittedly, just one game that we've seen. And we don't know that we're going to be able to see game 2 tonight.
Most anticipated season in decades. First game is against a non-NBA team. The second game we can't even watch. Come on, man. Are you serious?
So again, Comcast is like the legalized mafia in Philadelphia. So I will never forgive them for all their many crimes against basketball fans.
Wind them up.
But yeah, I didn't come out of game 1 concerned about how anybody was playing without the stars there. So I would hope that once Paul joins and now you have a natural 2, that there's even less of those concerns. And then Joel shows up and everybody looks around and is like, yep, those are the guys. I'm just here to do my job. And so hopefully that's the case.
No, I mean, look, there's outside of an injury, there is almost nothing that can happen in today's game that would make me concerned. But if you're going to ask me, like, who's going to step up, who's going to see their usage change, my answer is just I hope almost nobody sees their usage change. And it's just a gradual uptick for each one.
Is there any matchup? Preseason, I get it. Is there any matchup that you would like to see tonight against this Minnesota team that features Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, as we talked about? Conley played last game, Gobert, Dillingham, and is coming off the bench as well. Is there any matchup, maybe start a specific first at least, that you're looking for?
Well, I would say McCain against any number of their guards, right? Because he's going to have to deal with potentially. Is Mike Conley playing much in the preseason?
Well, he did play. I don't know that it was much.
We'll see if he plays tonight.
Yeah.
But
Alexander Walker.
Jared McCain against Mike Conley, Alexander Walker, Rob Dillingham. These are all guys with very different skill sets and, frankly, athletic profiles. Mm-hmm. And so as we're talking about, his defense last game was something that jumped out for me in a negative way. How does he cope with the various matchups that he might see throughout the game? Can he sustain the success that he had in game 1? Build the momentum from, all right, you had a nice debut as a shooter, pretty good rebounds, like 7 rebounds. So did pretty good job on the glass as well. How much of that is sustainable against a team where you probably won't have as many physical advantages as you did against some of those guys the last game? And that's really the big question for Jared, right? I think we all would agree he's got a elite singular skill as long as he profiles as the guy he was in college as a shooter. And it's everything else. We have to find out where he falls on the scales. So this is going to be a great early test for him. Yeah. Great real first opponent of the preseason for him. Again, all due respect to the New Zealand Breakers. So he's probably the most intriguing player of the preseason for them just because he's the one guy that feels out of the rotation currently that could, with the right first few months of the year, become a staple of the team right away.
How about you?
No, I mean, how well the young players, not just McCain. I'll throw Yabu in there, even though he's not really young. He's new. Yeah. And Ricky, that's like every preseason game, that's going to be something to focus on. I think where I'd go is it's not even really a matchup, although I'm curious to see how Kelly and Caleb do defensively against their tough assignments. But just like, how does the squad, if it is the 4 starters plus Drummond, how do they look without Embiid? Can they remain competitive defensively? I mean, this is something that we've talked about a lot. It would be great if when Joel Embiid misses a game or even just sits down for 8 minutes in a playoff game, you don't completely barf all over yourselves. This is the first real indication we get to see that. And like I said, they have a lot of defensive tools, and then they have Andre Drummond in there to clean up the glass. How well do those wings hold up defensively? How much penetration are they allowing? And can they remain competitive when the big man is on the bench?
Steve-O says in the chat, hype to see 2 Bulls, Yabu versus Randall, should they match up in this game tonight. And
you'd think they will.
And this would be the first Randall.
But I would say, I mean, so you brought up Yabusele. I do think that this is an important game for we saw him play the 5 against a team that he was bigger and stronger than a lot of the guys he's up against. Well, now you're playing a team that has a lot of front court talent, right? We're not asking, or Minnesota's not asking Rudy Gobert to go out there and do anything offensively, but Randall's a handful. Naz Reid is a real handful, was a major weapon for them off the bench, and I think was a key part of why they traded Karl-Anthony Towns, knowing what they were already getting out of Naz Reid. And so if Yabusele is going to play the 5 on these nights where Joel's not healthy and play it a lot throughout the season, this is a matchup where they're going to put that to the test, where you're going to see, okay, the wing depth around him to switch and prevent him from having to be a true rim protector. That's all well and good, but you might have to deal with, a Naz Reid. He might stretch you out to the perimeter and then blow by you if you can't keep up with him step for step. Same thing with Randall to a certain extent. And I think Randall is a more gifted post guy where Yabu is going to be strong enough to stand up to him, but Randall might just shoot over him and score. And so this is a great test, early test of where Yabusele is at and how viable him at the 5 is going to be moving forward.
And for that matter, if Nick Nurse decides to go to Abona at some point, how does he react to those types of players as well? And we'll even bring up for the whatever minutes that Garza plays, because he does go out to the 3-point line. And how does he move against a player like that? That you might see some point around the NBA throughout the 82-game schedule. A few more, and then we'll take a quick break here. It is, who do we have? I want to see Money Mar wants to see Drummond against Rudy Gobert tonight. I mean, we've seen it, but hey, you might have to see him during the regular season if Embiid doesn't play in a Minnesota game. Never know. So that's a matchup to be focused on, and Winona says Drummond on Randall if he is at the 5 or should some switch happen with those 2. All right, we come back on the PHLY Sixers podcast. We'll talk about a lot more with the Sixers and one of their opponents in the Atlantic Division. Get some thoughts.
Who just made a trade with this very Wolves team they're playing tonight.
Yes, they did.
Look at the synergy.
Look at that. See, that's why look at the teammates. We just read each other's minds. We know exactly where to go. And where are we going? We're going to a quick break right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And with that, got to tell you about our friends. They are our pregame, our post-game sponsor for the post-game shows. That's Bet365. All right, you can't bet baseball, not at least the baseball team here in our town. You can bet some of the other playoff games still going on. Or even without watching and you just look at the numbers. I haven't looked, but the numbers for tonight's Philadelphia-Minnesota preseason game. You might want to do that. And why would you do that? Well, because you want to make some money, and Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. And with that, they have live streams of 780,000 events each year. Maybe that's where you watch tonight's game on the Bet365 app. Early payouts across NBA, NFL, NHL is underway, and your home team is starting the season tonight as well. So maybe you want to go in that direction. MLB also. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 using the code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. So if any of those games interest you, Philadelphia home team, Philadelphia basketball team, the hockey team, if you want to place a wager, Bet365 is the place to go. So if you do that, make sure, again, you download Bet365's app. You get those bonus bets of $200 when betting $5. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
And everybody, I got to tell you about our good friends from Rite Aid. Maybe you've heard about their line of products, the LO Market. Maybe you haven't. We certainly have around here. We got a big shipment of all kinds of fun sweets, snacks that Devon, Derek, and I almost single-handedly ate ourselves.
Yes.
Wide variety of stuff, no matter what your taste is, right? So we're big candy guys on this show. So they have peach rings. They got the Starlight Mints, gummy butterflies, sour worms. They have all kinds of stuff for any candy enthusiast to chew on. And boy, do we have some candy enthusiasts on this show. But maybe you're trying to be a little healthier than we are. So look, they have nuts and trail mixes. They have popcorn. They got beef jerky. They have whole grain granola. So if we ever decide to get our act together on this show, and you know, it depends on the day, depends on the week, depends on the New Year's resolutions that will be coming in December that we might or might not live up to, you can lean on those options from Rite Aid and from LO Market instead of the ones we do, which is the sweet stuff, the good stuff, the candy. It's what I love. That's what's close to my
Sour cherry
heart.
gummies are killing me.
Oh, man. Don't get me started. I'm going to step out in the office and I'll have some more. If you are having a snack attack, get LO Market delivered same day or buy online, pick up in store. Go to riteaid.com/shop to order.
All right. Well, yeah, we always have the candy ready to go. So be ready, folks, when you hang out with us on the PHLY post-game shows.
And watch-alongs.
And
Savant just walks in. He has an open bag of gummies and he's like, yep,
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
and look, that's the great thing about our shows. Number one, we're eating the candy that we got from Rite Aid, so we can eat it on the show.
Yes.
It's all right. It's no problem. I think there's a watch-along tonight, too, Derek. A little Flyers action, starting the season off. Flyers.
Mitchkoff Mania, baby.
Yeah, man. So make sure you tune in with Charlie and as you get ready for the game, you got the fellas, you're hanging out, you're watching the game. It's going to be a good time. Bill, Charlie, have you all teed up for the PHLY Sixers, the Flyers watch along tonight. It's a good time. Got to have that. Hockey's back. They're one of 5 teams that haven't even started yet. The season started on Monday.
Which is crazy. I'm always envious at how early hockey starts, which sounds crazy. You would think, hey, you'd like to have more time off leading in. But we definitely reach a point where we're like, for the love of God, can we get some real games around here? And that time definitely hit for us a few weeks ago. So very close to being back. I'm excited for the hockey guys. Excited that the Flyers might be competent enough that on a Sixers off night, you might put the TV on and say, what's going on with those guys?
Yeah, so it should be a good time. Make sure you tune in for the watch along with the Flyers to start the season off here tonight. And it should be a fun one to start off. I think it's Vancouver. They play Vancouver tonight to start the season.
Stinking Canucks.
Yeah, so there's that.
I heard Vancouver is beautiful. I want to go there at some point,
Yeah,
but
I've
never been.
Yep, and their post-game show brought to you by Bet365. We just talked about them.
I've only been to Toronto and bad things happen in Toronto.
I've never been. That was you guys there for that shot. Never have to watch that shot again.
Yes, you do.
Wasn't even
just by
for
accident.
Just happened, and it's just annoying. Let's get some of these super chats in before we pivot to the Atlantic Division. Let's start off with Bill here. Should we be worried Embiid won't play game 1 against the Bucks on the 23rd? So today is the 11th, the 23rd. Should we be concerned about that 2 weeks later, just under 2 weeks from now? Should we be worried about that, Kyle?
No. Okay. And I'm not saying that because I have any information that like, hey, Joel has a bionic leg and is going through great workouts I'm only saying
it because it's 12 days away.
We've got almost 2 weeks until the first game, and they've been very clear and as transparent as they could be about they're going to slowly get Joe rolling, right? And so I was not expecting more than a single preseason appearance from Joel Embiid. I have said that on the show multiple times.
We talked about it on Wednesday.
I know that Nick Nurse gave a cagey answer to Keith Pompey of the Inquirer down in Iowa. I believe it was yesterday, right? Where he tried not to reveal too much, which is basically the standard operating procedure around Joel Embiid's health. And so I think right now what I would say to everyone is just chill out. And if something is going wrong, has gone wrong, if we learn something new that Joel is behind schedule or had a setback or anything like that, you will know because we will tell you, and we'll tell you the full details of everything. For now, just sit tight. We'll get through the preseason. Most likely very little Joel Embiid to be seen during that time. If we arrive on night one and he's on the injury report, that's when it's time to start ringing the alarm bell.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree with that. Now, I tend to worry about everything, so
that's where you and I differ a lot.
That is just my natural disposition. That does not mean there's anything necessarily to worry about, but like Joel Embiid's knee, I will probably worry about that for the rest of my writing career. But just the fact that he is not playing yet, and we all spoke before the preseason, we didn't expect him to play until the final game at most. We're nowhere near the final game. It's the second game of the preseason. They are going to be very, very cautious. I don't think they see enough value to be throwing him out there early on where he could get injured or something could happen. I think they're just going to take these very, very cautiously, and that's the way it is. But, I understand if you would like to see him play basketball. Like, that would certainly reassure some fans that he is ready to go. But
check out their Twitter accounts. You see him playing basketball at training camp when they put the videos out.
I would say, though, if they saw him playing right now, we would probably be going through the same thing we go through with Joel every year. And we'll go through it when he first plays, where it's like,
oh my God,
boy, he's out of shape. Oh boy, oh my God, he looks like he can't move and he can't do this.
The showcase game against Canada.
Listen, it happens every single time. So it's going to be a while before we have a true baseline of like, this is where Joel's at and where we can expect him to be throughout the regular season. So you can't stress before it's time to stress, or at least that's how I kind of approach life. We're going to go through some real ups and downs with Joel, almost guaranteed throughout the season. During the preseason where there are no stakes and we were told ahead of time, we're managing him very carefully. Now is not the time to start getting worked up.
Manage your emotions right now. Manage your emotions.
Get excited about Paul George and Joel Embiid.
Don't let yourself go
way
there.
Back in the recesses of your mind.
Yes.
It does seem like there are two types of fans, though. Like Darkness in the chat, keep him in a bubble until New Year's. There is that, mindset among fans. And then there's like, how the hell isn't he ready to go? And blah, 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 blah.
If I haven't seen him play a scrimmage by tomorrow, the season's over.
So, like, I don't care about early season, regular season. Like, they're going to win a lot of games, and I'm sure we'll have a show dedicated to making those predictions. They will win a lot of games. Whether he plays, 67 games or whether he plays 52 games, they will still win a lot of games. The only thing that really matters is him being ready to go in April and May and June. So the question is he being held out because they're cautious, or is he being held out because he's like there's some underlying thing with his knee? We have no indication that there's anything wrong with his knee, so there's no reason to flip out until you find out anything that would contradict that.
Except for a nurse just saying, scheduled knee, look, check him out, make sure everything is cool, and he did not make the trip. Not worried. We'll see them tonight, kinda, as it's been
maybe
our theme to the show here. On PHLY Sixers Podcast.
Comcast.
All right, Real Time with Prince Blue says, glad to see Derek after his player shaved points.
Was playing Coach Pete Bell the role of a lifetime, would you say, Derek?
Blocking you real time. That's it. You're done.
For anybody who missed it the other day, Derek was, for some reason, compared to Nick Nolte, who I'm insulted for, Derek, after we pulled photos up on the show.
As you pulled up the best photo.
I think he's like 83 years old, Nick Nolte. He was in his 50s during Blue Chips.
Now you got to grow the beard, Derek. You got to grow the beard now.
A white beard.
You got it. Not the white beard. You just got to grow the full beard like that. The James Harden beard.
There it is again. Derek, you were so good in whatever movie that is.
Pumping that gas, man.
I don't even think my face looks like his, though. I don't get it at any level.
I agree.
Any level.
No. I don't see it
outside
either.
of Real Time wanting to make fun of me. That's the only level that makes any sense on.
Is this a part of the show for the rest of the year?
Nick Nolte's corner.
right, Shaheed.
We're going to have to Photoshop Derek into like 48 hours.
I'm going to end up breaking
like,
into that account so I can block real time. That's what's going to happen.
Shaheed says gambling on a preseason game equals a call for intervention. Well, you know the number. We gave you the number, 1-800-GAMBLER, unless it's an over-under of Drummond three-point attempts or makes. Then you have a severe gambling problem. Bet 365.
In that case, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Talk about your problems. Yeah, I don't mean to make light of
Or
that.
you could hire Nick Nolte and maybe one of his players can throw a game
figure out
for
an
you.
in for you and shave some points. And no, obviously we only encourage legal above board gambling.
I'm not saying we should do it. I'm not Nick Nolte. I'm just saying maybe he would.
Yeah,
clearly I'm not Nick Nolte. You. Anyway.
Sandman said, "I thought Nick Nolte was the guy from Ghostbusters."
Oh.
It's Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murphy,
Bill Murray.
Bill Murphy. I said Bill Murphy. Bill Murray.
What's
never
the
remember the
name?
other two guys' names.
Ernie
What's the tall
Hudson.
guy's name?
Ernie Hudson.
Who did you say? Nick Nolte. You said
Not Nick Nolte. He's not in Ghostbusters.
Dan Aykroyd, Bill
Dan
Murray.
Aykroyd, Murray. Who
Harold
I now
Ramis.
renamed Bill Murphy,
Ramis.
apparently.
And Ernie Hudson. And Rick Moranis was fantastic in that as well. On that one. So, all right. I don't even.
Bill Murphy. I just invented a new person while we're on the show.
Well, you were thinking Nick Nolte in 48 hours.
I think I was just thinking of how I want them to trade for Trey Murphy, and we're on the Sixers show. And it,
at least right
You're
now.
thinking about that randomly in the middle of a show?
No, I'm just.
And
I'm
then,
making excuses
Which
for
I
my.
respect. I'm right there with you. But,
I think I was thinking of 48 hours, which is Eddie Murphy
Yes.
with Nick Nolte, and that
right,
was where I.
Yeah, you combine the two.
I made Eddie Murphy and Bill Murray one person.
As for right now, Bet365 does not have 3-point made here for Andre Drummond. He's not even on the list. Only
They're
Paul
scared.
George,
Bet
Tyrese
365,
Maxey,
you cowards.
Kelly Oubre,
Let us bet on Andre
Dante
Drummond.
DiVincenzo, and Anthony Edwards are the only ones on the list as of right now. But check me for the game.
we'll
Maybe
have to reach
changes.
out to our people there. We have
Yeah.
to get that on there.
We can
should be
get
a
that as
prop
one
bet.
of our Bet365
Yeah.
player
We need like a
props.
special prop. I think.
Yeah, we can do that. We
The
can absolutely do
PHLY
that.
A prop
Sixers
of the night.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie does it all the time for PHLY Sports. So we'll get ours before the season starts. All right. Speaking of that, let's get to the Atlantic Division and Minnesota Timberwolves making a trade before the preseason even started. And that's Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, as we've talked about. But we never got your thoughts, you guys' thoughts on the actual trade for New York and Minnesota, how that looks on each side. So, Kyle, your initial thoughts, and maybe even after seeing Karl-Anthony Towns a little bit with the Knicks in the preseason, what your thoughts have been since.
So his recent performances in the preseason notwithstanding, I'm still surprised they did it when they did, because it does feel like they have now, this is the team, right? It's going to be very difficult, even if they want to at some point, to break this team up. You're just pot committed. You don't have a lot of picks to attach to guys. You have a lot of guys on big money contracts, including a couple in Towns and Anunoby specifically that I think are like, that could get dicey, right? Because OG's rarely healthy for a full season. Towns has his health concerns in addition to some defensive issues. I do think if he plays to his offensive ceiling, and that comes and goes from time to time, it has materially raised their ceiling as a team, because I think the ability to play 5 out and have a guy who frankly is really comfortable and confident in that spot up role in the way Towns is, that might change the dynamic of their offense, right? It's a lot harder to defend them with Towns constantly lurking around the 3-point line, able to get up, 7-8 threes and make 40% of those, with Brunson's ability to score, with Mikhail's ability to slash, with OG's ability to, pick on some mismatches here and there. Like, I think he makes a big difference in that way. My worry would be he has never been a consistently good enough defender as a pure big man, as a true center. And can you make up for that with Mikhail and OG? That's about as good of a combination as you can have on the wing to try to account for it. But my worry would be that Twin Towers thing ended up working out brilliantly for him because he was able to lean into his offensive firepower and what he's able to do while having Rudy Gobert to protect him a lot of the time and be the final line of defense, the rim protector that Minnesota needed. And now that he doesn't have that, I just wonder what that looks like for him, what that looks like for the Knicks. And beyond that, how much you change the identity of the team by putting Cat there, and maybe now you're less of a aggressive offensive rebounding team, and maybe now you're a little bit less of that stingy defensive team. Like, how much do you compromise what you were great at in order to improve your ability to score on the other end of the floor? So I think it's a really interesting trade for the Knicks. I am not really prepared to say anybody won that trade. I think there are some downfalls for both teams and some upside for both teams, but it's interesting at the very least.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting thought experiments that we get to see play out among recent trades, because it's not truly obvious. I think Minnesota got the best player, and I think pretty clearly. And I know there's some people, Winona in the chat.
Minnesota got the best player?
No, I'm sorry, New York.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, boy, didn't know you were a Julius Randle guy.
But there's some, Winona in the chat was saying, well, you can't count on Cat. Well, I don't know if you looked up Julius Randle's playoff stats.
Oh, they are ghastly.
He's shooting 34% from the field and 28% from 3 in 15 playoff games. He is not reliable in the playoffs at all. So I think they got the best player, and I think they did increase their overall ceiling. But, and I do think, generally speaking, I do not like Cat as a 5, period, point blank. He's just not a good enough team defender. His rotations aren't there. His communication's not there. He's not a physical enough defender. He doesn't protect them. There's all kinds of reasons I don't like him. But if you were going to say what's the perfect environment for him to not succeed defensively at the 5, because you'll never succeed defensively.
Tread water.
But to not be as damaging, it would be in a squad like New York, where they have big wings who can switch almost everything and limit his responsibility defensively. And if that happens, and look, I think there's some question well, is Joel Embiid going to defend Cat? No, I think in that series, Joel Embiid defends Josh Hart, and you just hope he doesn't shoot 45% from 3 again, because you can get away putting a wing, someone like Caleb Martin on Cat. He's not really going to bully him in the post. He still wants to be on the perimeter, and Cat can still be useful in that regard, right? He is a much more connective piece. First of all, he's a better offensive player than Randle, puts up similar numbers, but way more efficient, and he doesn't stop the ball movement nearly as much. His shooting's good enough that he legitimately spaces the floor, and the ball moves a lot better with him on it. I think he's going to make each player's job on New York easier offensively. The question is, can they keep that defensive identity? Can they keep that identity as a rebounder? And do they have enough depth? Because when you make a 2-for-1 trade like this and 2 core key pieces in your rotation, well, now you're shorter. You have a team that is frequently injured and with a lot of injury-prone guys. Is that upgrade offensively enough to counteract that depth and that defensive downgrade? And we'll see. Like I said, it's one of the more interesting thought experiments that we've seen. Because, no, I don't... I think Cat is supremely talented. I think he's more talented than Julius Randle. And frankly, I trust him a little more in the playoffs. But that's not really because I fully bought into Cat as a playoff performer. Just the other guy has been really, really bad. But there are certainly some downsides. I think from Minnesota's viewpoint, and the question isn't just can New York overcome those concerns, but also, was this the best move to make with that big expiring contract in Randle? Because like you said, they're a little pot committed at this point. From Minnesota's viewpoint, first of all, they saved money, and that's a huge portion of this deal. That's a huge, huge portion. And hopefully they got a guy in Dante who can be a long-term role player at a relatively fixed cost. Yeah. So you're getting rid of one bad contract. You're getting you're not getting the best player, and the headliner, so to speak, that you got probably isn't a long-term part of your plans, but maybe you got a role player that you think you can slot in. I think that's probably their philosophy, not a short. I don't think this year they're better.
Well, the Sixers play the Knicks, the 10th game of the season, and that's going to be an interesting one. It's part of the start of the NBA midseason tournament, and they are in the same group as the New York Knicks, so we get to see them very early in the 10th game of the season as the Sixers and the Knicks will face off here in Philadelphia.
And I have one more out of this whole trade that I think has maybe flown under the radar. And this is something we talked about way back when we talked about Anunoby as a trade target. are we sure just because they gave him all the money that he's going to be happy at where he's at in the pecking order here? Because everything that we heard, and I've talked to some people even recently after this cat trade that would know, was OG wants to be a featured guy to some extent, right? Like wanted more opportunities. And that was one of the friction points in Toronto. It was something, there were, I don't say issues last year when he was in New York, but certainly he wanted to be involved on the ball. And I think part of his signing that contract was looking at the landscape and saying, okay, Mikhail's coming in, but also I can be like a third option type guy on this team. Now you're like a very clear, very clear fourth option. And, you know, money can do a lot of things and, you know, push this off to the side for a while. But if you get halfway into the season and OG is grumbling about like, well, you know, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. Yeah, I'm scoring 10 to 12 points a few nights a week. It's like, I don't know, that's a potential friction point for that team that I'm interested to follow. So not to say that that's not a reason to do the deal, right? I think Cat, for all the reasons that we already laid out, is still a worthwhile gamble, but just something to keep an eye on up there in New York.
Should be an interesting one. Do either of you believe real fast that they have now, if you had the Sixers just in front of them, do you think this puts them right back in front of the Sixers, or are the Sixers still right there? Because when we looked at the numbers, what was it, 52? Knicks were still 52.5 win total. The Sixers were 51.5, according to Bet365. Does that change anything for either of you?
I don't know. Tell me who's healthy.
Yeah, I think it's very dependent on who emerges in April, May with most, if not all, their roster intact, because that's, I mean, between Cat and OG and between Joel and Paul, those are four core guys between those two teams that you're like, you really got to cross your fingers that they don't run into any health issues at the end of the year.
Yep, absolutely. Well, should be a fun time as the season gets underway in just under 2 weeks. And we had a fun time the other night when we got to hang out with, are they our friends now?
Friends of the show.
Friends of the show.
Stack
we got
Matt
pictures.
Barnes.
We dapped up. I think we can call them friends.
We got pictures?
Yeah.
Show them, Bree. Let the people know we had a good time the other night as we got to hang out at the All the Smoke live show at the TLA on Wednesday night. And we had a blast. Afterwards, after the show, we went and had a chance to catch up with Stack and Matt Barnes, and they were as cool as you would think they are.
Very, very nice, approachable guy. Stack was real happy to see us after we did the show. I think he will be back on the show at some point this season.
Maybe Matt will be there as
Maybe
well.
We can get both of them on the show at some point.
Never know.
But we had a good time.
Yeah, we had a fun time. The book, and they dropped their book. They were giving out hats, and
they were giving out money at the show.
Yeah.
They brought out a hoop and had people shoot from the audience, and depending on how far you were, the price was going up. There was a kid who I think made like a $500 shot from way far away from the stage, a 16-year-old.
I thought his was the $200 shot.
Maybe it was a $200.
And then he got another $500 opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was. It's a good time, very interactive.
Yes.
Gilly and Wallow were all fired up.
They were acting. So you see, the Philly wants all the smoke is what they were presenting there. Philly wants all the smoke, and it was a good time. So T-shirts, hats, lighters they were giving away. Of course, all the smoke. They were giving away lighters and all of that cool stuff, and money. That was the big one.
Listen, I would love to go to more shows where they're just like, here's some cash for showing up, because that is not common at any concert or any show, any kind of in-person event I've ever been to.
We didn't try to get in. We should have tried to get in the middle of that.
I
guess since we were friends of the show, we decided not to include ourselves.
I'm not trying to reach in their pockets for money. That's although their pockets are a little heavier than mine. So maybe.
You can't have ringers going up there trying to shoot. That's unfair.
That's right. Especially after we were getting some of those numbers as Gilly and Wallow were talking about there.
I will say, when he started talking about $500, I thought about it.
Hey, that's when I was
$500, $500.
Line it up. So good time all around. Hopefully we have those guys on at some point during the season. We'll make sure we pick a spot and have those guys on. We want to tell you about our Die Hard program. Make sure you sign up Again, allphly.com, and you sign up, you become a member, you get access to all the articles that these guys write for the Sixers. Charlie will have one, of course, because as the guys like to call him, a machine after tonight's game, the debut for Mishkov against the Canucks tonight. Their watch along is also tonight, so make sure you tune in. I believe it's a 10 o'clock game tonight, so it's going to be a late watch along, but the team will be ready. They'll be ready for you, the watch along. Discord only access as well. When you become a member, you get a t-shirt when you do sign up to become a member of the Die Hard program. All the stories, all the access. Make sure you go sign up. Die Hard program, allphly.com. Also, one Sixer just retired ahead of the season. He was on the roster last year to start the season. Then he got cut very quickly, waived.
Forgot about that. Did he play he played like a game, right?
A game.
And he looked good, too. That was the thing.
But when you make a trade and you bring 4 guys in, some people have to be moved off of the contract. Danny Green, 15 years in the league, 3-time league champion, including that Toronto year. Almost had a finals MVP, if not for that Ray Allen, man. Traveling and hitting that corner 3 on the gather. He traveled.
Jesus saves.
But he did save. So he is Jesus, and you get away with certain things. Kyle, when you look at Danny Green's career as a guy, he started out where he was in and out of the league before he caught back on with Cleveland. But 15 years, 3 titles, one of the best three-point shooters at his position as a two-way guy also. And again, a cup of coffee here with the 76ers. It ended terribly because of the torn ACL in the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks. That was a tough one because Joel didn't need to fall on the floor.
Eugene said, rest in peace, Danny Green. He's not dead. He just retired.
He has a career post-basketball, I'm sure.
You'll probably be seeing a lot of them now. He's a lot of podcasts.
Exactly. Joel, you shouldn't have fallen on the floor. That's just my thing with that ACL tear. But Kyle, he had a pretty damn good career.
He is, to me, one of the great examples of how far you can go just buying into your role, right? Because he essentially has been a role player since he was in college, right? Obviously, little further up the pecking order when he was at UNC, but even then, there's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of guys who needed touches on what was one of the great recent college teams at UNC, and struggled out of the gate. Went to Cleveland, only played 20 games his rookie year. Didn't look like he was going to make it for various reasons. Gets into the Spurs ecosystem and has an incredible career just mastering the things that he was good at, being like the 4th, 5th guy on the roster or 4th, 5th option on the floor, even when he's with bench groups and whatnot, just playing that same role, playing hard on defense, consummate off-ball defender, high-level shooter. All that had some, as you mentioned, some big-time moments throughout the playoffs over the years. So happy to see him, have a long, successful career because they're the type of guys you want to root for, right? He's also an A-plus guy, was always on our side.
Yep.
Very easy to deal with, very professional, personable during all the media stuff. So on top of being a high-level basketball player, has always seemed like a great guy. Even when he came out, you brought up the knee injury. He came out and did his exit interview. It would have been like the next day, 2 days later, whenever it was. And his leg was just completely wrapped up, all sorts of bandages. He's on crutches. And it's a scenario where he's staring career mortality in the face and was still smile on his face. I think I'm going to be back next year. And was one of the few guys that was like, yeah, I'll be back. He was back by, I think, around the trade deadline, he was back the next year. So he threw his full weight behind rehabbing because he loved the game and wanted to come back, leave on his terms. Respect the hell out of him for that. So I'll give a little golf clap
just to play off
for
that,
Danny's career.
That story about the media coming out for the postseason media availability. I saw him at an event in June. It was late June. And we were at an event together, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Hurts, it's just a bunch of people there. And I got to talk to them and I was asking him about it and we started talking. So he started asking me questions because of my ACL. And I was like, dude, what are you doing here? sitting here signing autographs, making an appearance as you are recovering just a month later from ripping your knee up and ripping it up pretty badly. Not just the ACL, there were some of the other things
that was a multiple ligament.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he was like, I'm okay, and he got up. He was limping. At that point, I was still on my crutches, and I'm like, dude, I know you're an athlete and you get all this around the clock access, but you need your crutches, man. And but that's the kind of guy he was. You're absolutely right. He got back pretty quickly. Started the season off, I believe, with Memphis. Was it Memphis that he was? Was it Memphis? I thought.
Well, they traded him to Memphis in the Melton trade, but he played with Cleveland.
Cleveland, okay.
He actually did. He appeared in 3 games with Memphis before the deadline.
And then,
I think.
So
at age 35, came back in.
Good guy.
That would have been what, like 11? No, not even 11 months. Something like 8 months, 9 months from a multiple ligament. Like that's crazy. I mean, some of that is just. It's got to be like genetic or whatever.
And again, around the clock treatment that they get with their physicians and all. But good guy. And I'm sure, like Derek said, we'll see him so much more here going forward with whatever post-basketball career he's going to have in the media.
Yeah. And you brought up embracing his role, but like go back to his UNC teams. Tyler Hansbrough, Wayne Ellington, Ed Davis, all players who had more touches at UNC.
And lottery picks.
Drafted higher than him.
Right,
And he played more minutes than any of them and obviously won then the 3 championships. And just being able to be the best version of yourself and embracing that role, he really got the absolute most out of what he was given. He was reliable. He was dependable. He did everything you needed a role player to do. It was a great career.
Yep, really good career.
They had 7 NBA players on that 09 UNC team. Could you name all of them? So you named Hansborough, Danny, Wayne, and Ed Davis. That's 4. There are 3 more.
On the 09 team.
You're missing the engine of the team.
That wasn't Lawson, was it?
It was Ty Lawson.
So that's 5.
Ty Lawson's the point guard.
There's 2 more?
You're missing 2 freshmen on the team. One's a big, one's a guard.
09.
And I'll give you another hint. The big is a sibling NBA guy.
Which Hansbrough brother is it?
No, it's not Hansbrough.
Not Hansbrough.
Sibling. His sibling made the NBA.
Before or after him?
After him.
Big man, front court on that
white guy
team. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. I don't know. Who is it?
Tyler Zeller.
Oh.
Okay.
And the other one's a guard.
Any hint on the guard?
I believe you would know his father.
No, you already said.
Yeah, his father was a coach. He's got the same name as his father.
Yeah, and I can't name him.
Yeah.
But I know
you'll
exactly
be mad when you hear it.
Yeah, go for it.
Larry Drew.
Yep.
It's the other guy.
Yep.
7 NBA players on that team.
Yeah,
that team was a juggernaut.
I forgot Tyler went to UNC because his brother went to Indy.
Yes.
I forgot Tyler went to UNC.
Yeah. Another also decent career.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was crazy was the 05 team was great too, right? They had Felton, Sean May, Marvin Williams, Rashad McCants.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to remember who else is on that team. Is that Jawad Williams? Was he there?
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That team was great. Beat that number 1 seed Illinois team in the championship game. 09 team was probably even better. And I know that Danny has gotten into many arguments over the years about which of those teams was better. So I had to show some love to the Tar Heels.
Illinois team was tough. Luther Head, D. Brown, Darren Williams, not Deron Williams, Darren Williams. That was a tough team.
And they almost got eliminated by Arizona, by the way.
Did you
for that
know that
crazy
Darren
comeback.
Williams was going to be the best out of those 3? Because I did not.
That was always kind of the consensus at the time.
I still thought that D. Brown would be the best player of them all. I did not, before he became, of course, the top 5 pick and all that stuff. I just thought that D. Brown was going to be.
They should have never made that title game, man. Salim Stoudemire had them beat, and they choked that game away in the final minute. I was watching that game before I went on. I think it was literally my first ever date I went on as a teenager was the night of that game. So that tells you how long ago that was.
When college basketball was great, man. College basketball was great then.
Damn
so
NIL
much anymore.
and all
Not
these
so much
things.
anymore.
I'm
Not
just
so
messing.
much. Although I can't wait to go see that Rutgers team.
Oh, that's
Okay.
gonna be sick.
We got tickets, man. Let me know. We take that ride.
I'll make my way over to Jersey.
Take
one
that
way
ride.
Or another.
You already know. All right. It's been a good one today. Folks, don't forget tomorrow we will be here for a pre and post game. This one is
Yes,
televised.
sir.
So we're doing a pre and post game. And it's going to be fun tomorrow. Beginning, I think it's a normal 7 o'clock game. So we're starting at 6:30. And then we will have the post game as the Sixers take on the Celtics.
Come choose chill for your Saturday night pregame. Hang out with us, and then hang out after the game with us. We'll see who actually ends up playing tomorrow.
Especially in the back-to-back.
This back-to-back in the preseason is
8
It's an 8 o'clock
game.
tomorrow, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we got a 7:30 pregame.
7:30, and then a post-game show after Sixers Celtics tomorrow night.
So
But now,
we're back in the mix, everybody.
yeah, baby.
3 games next week. We got a game tomorrow. Every time we do the show, though, we're going to give you the world famous
Roll call!
Let's do it.
And I think I first have to shout out Jay of the Jungle, who after I told my date story said he lost his V card during the game MJ crossed up Allen Iverson. Now there's a piece of chat lore you don't get every single day. Congratulations on the relations, Jay of the Jungle, and thank you for being here. Thank you to my girl Winona. Thank you to Darkness
Turn
for
the
checking in
lights
today.
down low, man.
Thank you to Money Mar.
Oh, man.
Thank you
What
to
up,
Brian
Mar?
Knight. Thank you to Val Host. Thank you to Phi Chi.
Hey, Val.
Thank you to the real Martian Lynch 33.
What up, Martian?
Eugene Ross checking in and saying,
Gene, I owe you a pizza.
Comcast, get out of here.
And I owe you a pizza. Yes.
Thank you to Bootzilla.
Boots.
Thank you to Destructo Bizarro.
Whoa, that's a
That's
good
a new one. Who thought it was Plumlee, not Zeller? Wrong North Carolina school,
And
my
that's
friend.
why I paused, because I almost went to the Plumlee name.
Yeah.
I knew
Thank
it
you
was
to
wrong.
Keith B.
What up, Keith?
Thank you to
When you
Hardcore
drop
for
that
Florida.
R&B single, Keith B. Drop that single.
Thank you to Remo K.
What up, Remo?
I'm still reeling from the Jay the Jungle reveal. Thank you to Mr. Sandman.
Bring me a dream.
Oh my goodness.
Look at
I'm
that
not-
harmony there. We got an R&B single together, Keith B.
SB Cole, AC Philla. We got a lot of people to thank today. Dan McGlade.
What up, Dan?
Oh boy.
Oh, man.
Who were our super chatters today, Bree? We had Real Time with Prince Blue. We have Bill, the plant avatar.
What up, Bill?
And we had our guy
Real
Shahid all
Time
checking in.
Shahid.
Thank you for the super chats today. Fellas, thank you to I'm My Own Yams Now as well. Thanks to everyone checking in. The Old Valerians
Oh!
also squeezing
Welcome
in
back,
right
Old
at the end.
Valerians.
Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. Send me a thumbs up to say thank you to super producer Bree.
Thank you,
The
Bree.
best, the GOAT, for helping us out every week. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Bree was famous on Wednesday night too, folks. Don't let it
was a
fool you. She's
star.
quiet.
Yep.
She's a star though. She's a star. We appreciate everybody. See you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.